GB News spent $500,000 mainly on right-wing MPs and nearly half on the Reform Party. I'm going to read into this piece from Byline Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Byline Times with the headline that GB News spent $500,000 mainly on the right-wing MPs and nearly half on the Reform Party. 11 MPs have been paid over £500,000 by the channel over the past year, with $200,000 going to just 2 Reform MPs. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. But of course, there's no conflict of interest here. There's definitely nothing wrong here. But, Keir Starmer, obviously, is definitely problematic on the donations and gifts that he's taken. But I've made my piece on that already, and we'll cover that. I'm sure we'll continue to cover that. But for people who are saying, there's nothing wrong with this is perfectly all right. No, it's perfectly nothing all right with 2 Conservative MPs having a conversation with each other on a British broadcast channel that is supposed to be a news channel. But apparently they're not a news channel for some reason, even though they state that in their title that they're a news channel. But they say that they're not a news channel, that they're not a conflict of interest in any way, shape or form, apparently. All this money being thrown at these MPs to be on these platforms, this needs to stop. This needs to stop. Now, I want to make this clear that there is nothing wrong with politicians going on TV. There's nothing wrong with politicians speaking in articles, but there is definitely, I feel like, of a conflict of interest here, especially when a broadcasting news channel is only having on right-wing MPs of a selective group of MPs on all the time. And they never seem to have like any centre politicians or left-wing politicians or analysis of people on their show enough. And it's almost as if it feels unfair, You have to have a balanced view, a balanced view. And GB News has been anything but fair. In my opinion. Now, some people will argue that there are times where GB News actually covers things properly and do things a lot better than Sky News at sometimes, and maybe that is true. But overall, the fact that they throw so much money at Reform MPs or Niger Reform MPs and Conservative MPs to have them on the show, you can't tell me there's not something wrong here. You can't tell me that this is perfectly okay. It was not okay that David Lammy had a radio show on LBC. It wasn't okay that that these guys have their own shows on GB News. I don't like Suella Braverman having a bit of a radio host on LBC, but Eva, I don't like that at all. I think these are problematic. I don't mind them every now and then, but when they're a permanent fixture like these guys are for GB News, it is the same people with the same rhetoric, and these are politicians who are supposed to be doing their jobs and serving their constituents, and instead they're spewing they're speaking about issues and problems that are taking place in the UK or the world, rather than actually doing something about it, because they're MPs and they should be serving their constituents. So GB News spent well over £500,000 on appearances for fees for Tory and Reform politicians in the last year, a new record for the upstart right-wing news channel. Analysis of the latest Register of MPs Interests by Byline Times found that 11 MPs have been paid £525,000 and 277 in fees from the channel while serving as parliamentarians over the last year. That includes new MPs from the general election and those who lost their seats in July. Nearly £200,000 of that went to 2 Reform MPs, with the rest mostly being split among an array of Conservative hosts and guests. Former Conservative MP Jacob Rees-Mogg was the highest earner, listed $262,000 worth of payments in the last year from the channel hosting the State of the Nation show. Now, Jacob Rees-Mogg is now a different kettle of fish. I have to state this now because he's no longer an MP. I don't have my position is very different now to him, because while I don't agree that he should have a voice and a platform because of the kind of person that he is, and that's just my opinion, whether you agree or disagree, the fact that he's not an MP is different now. Because he was an MP before, I felt that him being paid to be on that show was wrong. But he can be on GB News as much as he likes now, because he's not a politician that can. He's not an MP that can influence things. That's my position now. Whereas Lee Anderson, Nigel Farage, and whatnot, they should not. It shouldn't be all the time. However, the Financial Times reported this week that Rees-Mogg may be facing the axe after GB News CEO Angelos Frangopoulos admitted the channel will have to make some conversations with the former MPs after his failure to retain his seat. Yeah, so Jacob Rees-Mogg may have to tone down a bit. Another permanent host, Reform MP Lee Anderson, is paid £100,000 a year by the channel for hosting duties. He was followed by the party's leader and new elected MP Nigel Farage, who received an £81,607 payment from the channel 12 days after being elected as an MP. And he's registered list payments after he was elected rather than a whole year, as Anderson and Rees-Mogg do. Farage declared income from the channel and could become significantly higher within the next few months as more payments are lodged. Married politician couple Esther Mavet and Philip Davis, the latter of whom is no longer an MP, under combined total of $53,000 from presenting on the channel, mostly a joint early morning slot. MPs and other former MPs, including Kwasi Kwarteng, Andrea Jacobs, and Jonathan Gullis, also netted several £1,000s of payments from the channel. If they're former MPs, the difference is it's an indifferent. Like, they can do whatever they want when they're former MPs, but when they're MPs and they're on there all the time, then it's a problem. But the problem for me is that, and we'll keep reading here in a moment, the only MP made it to politicians outside the two right-wing parties was Labour MP Barry Gardiner, who lodged £600 in appearance fees from the channel. So the only Labour MP that was on Labour MP Barry Gardiner. And you're going to tell me there's nothing wrong here? The figures registered at the right-wing news outlet significantly outstripped other news outlets, which would typically pay politicians appearance or writing fees in the hundreds of, at the most, low thousands of pounds. In April, GB News announced it would be forced to cut back 40 staff roles and tried to stem huge financial losses in the outlet. In the financial year to May 2023, it made a loss of over £42 million, bringing its total losses since launch to 2021 to at least £76 million. GB News is owned by the hedge fund tycoon Paul Marshall. The channel is only part of Marshall's growing media empire, having founded alternative news site Unheard and recently acquired right-wing magazine The Spectator for £100 million. Marshall is all reported to be one of the front-runners in the bid to buy The Telegraph, which could make him one of the most influential media mongols in the UK. And in May, GB News announced it was launching legal proceedings against media regulator Ofcom after it ruled that the channel had breached broadcasting rules. The regulator had opened a dozen investigations of the outlet in recent years over its alleged failure to abide by impartiality rules. Yeah, Ofcom needs to be strengthened so that they can crack down on not just GB News but any outlets that are misconscribing and misconstruing people there. But that's a lot of money that the news outlet, and it is a news outlet, or I like to call it a propaganda outlet, that is throwing at a lot of right-wing MPs there. And whether they have 10 viewers or 500,000 viewers, it's still dangerous to me. If it was a bit more fair, a bit more biased, if you had more left-wing, more centre people on, I'd be a bit more inclined. But I just think that the amount of money that they're throwing at these MPs, it feels like it's just conflict of interest. It just screams conflict of interest to me. Yes, I don't like the program and the outlet and whatnot, but it's not right that all this money is thrown at them. But what do you guys think? Maybe some of you will vehemently disagree and think it's perfectly acceptable for all these politicians to be on there and to be paid such a huge amount of money to be a part of them. Let me know your thoughts and more about this down in the comments section below. If you found this video informative, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do on this channel, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for just 99p. Or you can join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.